on this 25th day of February. Welcome. Now you can take the eyeballs off, I got that part down. I would like to open at this time the budget hearing, our public budget hearing, as required by Oregon Revised Statute. That budget hearing will remain open until later in the agenda as stated. I don't see any members of the public here ready with any particular questions regarding the budget. So, moving on, item number 1, consent items. We have, Bob, would you like to discuss the potential change to the agenda before we have an approved agenda?
Well, what we'd like to do under information and discussion items is on 3.2, go ahead and actually take action on that to switch Vicky and Jim from Vicky being zone 5 to Jim being zone 5 and Vicky going to at-large.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I emailed you
then-
that, because
and
that's
then-
your area.
And then add 3.5 swearing Jim in. Hopefully not swearing at Jim.
Next meeting.
So we would change section 3.2 to be an action item.
Yes.
And add section 3.5 as the swearing in of our newly appointed board member. Any other questions or discussion regarding the agenda? Meeting minutes? Everyone had an opportunity to review.
I'll make a motion that we approve both the amended agenda and minutes of the last
Second.
meeting.
Motion made and second to approve the consent items. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Okay, moving right along. Jim, we don't like to mess around here. We'll get at it. Board reports. Let's start with our newly appointed, though not yet sworn in board member, and let's see if he has anything to report. You've been sitting next to Dale just long enough, haven't you? Welcome, though.
Thank you.
Mr. Cannell, sir.
Two things, actually. We actually may have internet at Paisley. TNet is coming through, and hopefully things will be up and operational next week. So hopefully that'll work out. Then I want to introduce Bob Nash as the new Paisley superintendent. We are still looking. We thought we had some folks, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen right now. So I think what we may do is try to extend Bill out another year and continue the search, but we haven't decided what we're going to do yet. But I think that's the way it's going. I'll offer him a 6-pack of beer. He wouldn't go for it.
You'd probably didn't offer him, the microbrew fancy
Yeah,
stuff.
it was Bush, I'm sorry.
Great, thank you.
All quiet
All quiet. Mr. Griffin front?
on the northern front. yeah.
Okay. Vicki?
Oh, newspapers here, I can't get political, I'm quiet. I'm just happy what's happening in Salem.
It should be an interesting legislative session for sure. Nothing too exciting on this front. We're continuing discussions I'd mentioned before at the county level, just with discussion regarding data security and data management and some of the interesting things, liabilities that are catching up with technology that have been quite a learning experience. So I'll keep you posted more on those. And if you have a case of insomnia, I've got a couple sample policies you could read. I'm sure that'll fix it in a hurry. Mr. Nash.
Actually, Sarah.
Alright, for our financial reports, you've got them in front of you. There's not a whole bunch to expound on. It's just basically what you see, things going well.
I see those higher expenditures hit in January as you anticipated.
Yeah, a lot came due, huh?
Yeah, that's, yeah.
District 7 finally got caught up on their accounts receivable, and yeah.
We pulled them out of the hole, so.
It looks like on the summary of expenditures, that purple page, it looks like we're coming in pretty handily at 43% of overall
Yeah, I
expenditures.
looked at that, and, yeah, especially if that figure's in this month, this last month, and, yeah, we should be okay.
Do we anticipate any big surprises through now and the rest of the year? I guess that would take away the whole idea of being a surprise.
Of a surprise, yeah. We will, I've done some preliminary projections for end of year stuff. We'll likely come in under our 300,000 cash carryover, but it won't be a surprise. It'll be anticipated.
Now that you've told us.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, just
But
cushion it early.
as we get closer, I'll have a better idea of where we'll be.
How much under you think?
You know, we'll have to get closer before I'll know for sure. We do have some caveats, and I don't know if you'd be more comfortable talking about it, but there are some things that we may or may not be able to invoice for, so.
There's some question marks out there. For
Yeah.
example, as I told you, we have Megan Hannigan working full-time. District 7 entered into an MOU to cover basically 40% of her time out at Union Grade School. The bottom line will be that if we've met our 90% obligation to District 7, then they will have to pay us for her time out there, or at least part of her time. But if we have not met our 90% obligation, then we will be paying. Yeah, so if that's one of those things, that's probably the biggest single
Yeah.
issue that's hanging out there.
Yep.
Any other questions or observations regarding the financial reports? Sarah, do you have anything you'd like to add of profound wisdom?
Silence is the most profound.
Okay. Well, now, I would move forward to,
I come bearing lots of handouts, unfortunately.
Sarah and Debbie.
John was lucky enough to be here, was it 2 weeks ago? We had the OA ESD Governance Council meeting. It was a very interesting meeting, and we'll update the board on that. I'm gonna save the big picture finance stuff we'll handle in 3.1, but so we'll just kind of rip through some of these smaller, twinkier things. At the OA ESD Governance Council, the highlights, you might remember going way back several months that there was this bind that ODE and the districts were in. The districts needed the Smarter Balanced interim and formative assessments. ODE could not enter into a contract to do those. For some reason, the legislature had forbade them from doing that. They wanted each district in the state to enter into an agreement to provide, and these are important tests. These are the tests that teachers will give kids to find out how close they're doing, how well they're teaching, etc. And so they're fairly important tests. For some reason, the legislature didn't want ODE involved in that. They wanted districts to have choice. But when you think about it, everybody's going to choose to go Smarter Balanced because that's the big high stakes test at the end of the year. Why would you go with Acme tests when your students are taking Smarter Balanced? So anyway, OA ESD filled the void. They were the ones that brokered the deal for the entire state, and even though it's taken quite a bit of time, it's up and running. We had actually a training was held at District 7 a couple of weeks ago. Teachers from all around the county attended that, and we are ready to go on that. Quick reminder that the Spring OA ESD Conference is Thursday, May 14th through Saturday, May 16th. It's at Eagle Crest. Love to have some board representation up there. I'm sure I will be going. Fairly certain that Marsha Nichols will be going. Love to have some board members up there as well. A quick legislative update, school funding, as you probably have heard, there, particularly with the turnover in the executive mansion, there hasn't been a lot of news on the budget front. The last report, of course, was the co-chair proposal of $7.24 billion. That includes $200 million for all-day kindergarten, which really is not, it's really a cut from where we are. Most districts and superintendents say we need 7.3 to 7.5 to basically maintain current programs. So that the news on that is not real stellar at this point, but we'll just see how it ends up. The good news for us is, for the first time in many bienniums, absolutely no major ESD legislation. No legislation to consolidate ESDs, to close ESDs, to allow more districts to opt out of ESDs. Just, it's quiet, all is quiet on that front.
Is that good or bad?
It's good. There is a bill to allow ESDs to apply for all ODE initiative grants, which you might remember 2 years ago, we were not allowed to apply for some of the more important grants.
Refresh my, what's an initiative grant?
Okay, things like the teacher mentoring program, things like the 8th and 9th grade mentoring, certain support for science and technology. The state, and it was a big Kitzhaber thing to really earmark, carve out a certain percentage of the ODE budget and allow districts and or ESDs to apply for these support for these programs.
Okay.
And summer before last, it was a lot of chaos because, and it's 18 months now removed, I can't speak with any specificity, but there were some grants, for example, like the teacher mentoring that the ESDs were allowed to apply for. But then there were other grants, and boy, I should have thought up a couple of good examples here, where ESDs were told that it had to only go through school districts. Well, we pointed out to ODE that in places like Lake County, it's only going to happen if the ESD does it. The school districts aren't going to engage in some of these programs. So this year there's legislation, and it looks like it's going to sail through to allow the ESDs to apply for any and all ODE grants. Yeah. And then, of course, there's several bills that allow parents that right now you can only opt out of state testing for religious or special education reasons. There's at least 4 bills in front of the legislature to widen the scope of opting out. There's a lot of push, particularly up in the Portland area, to do that. I don't know where that one's headed. That's
Religious reasons?
Not necessarily. I think there's certain groups that are looking at it from a religious standpoint. There's actually been some press lately about, and you're going to hear, even the 3rd graders taking the Smarter Balance are looking at 4 hours for reading and writing and 4 hours for math.
Okay.
Now, they can do it in several sittings. They don't have to sit down and do it all at once. But there's certainly going to be some bumps in the road. My attitude on this is, look, it's the first year. Let's work out the problems as we go along. Let's not just immediately have this knee-jerk reaction. As we know, the feds expect, 94, 95% participation rates on those tests. They're not going to be happy. So I'm not sure where that's headed. I gave you two little handouts there. One is a list of bills that are being that are having hearings this week. You can run through that. I'm not going to go through those with you. If you have any questions, we can talk about them. But there's nothing specific to ESDs. There's a few things that I'm certainly going to keep my eye on. There's one that changes the time that you have it shortens the time that you have to do your special ed evaluations. We're going to keep an eye on that one. There's some others in there, but anyway, there's nothing at this point that's totally earth shaking. The one to allow ESDs to put in for all of the initiative grants is not yet at the hearing stage. It has good support though. So. And the other handout I gave you is for a bill tracker, real easy, it's www.billtracker.com. You can go in and you can follow the bills. Now, if you forget that or lose that handout, no big deal. Just go to the COSA website. They have another bill tracker. It's I probably prefer it, but since I had the instructions already printed up to give you guys on this one, I thought I'd go ahead and give it to you. But either that or the COSA website, and you can track all the legislation. So, anything on that?
This is nice, thank you for this.
Sure.
List of bills. This is
Item 2, minimum instructional time. The state board did pass the changes to minimum instruction time. We had talked about that. You know, again, the only real change is going to be on kindergarten through 3rd grade, where they will go from, 800 hours to 830 hours. The law will actually read 900, but you can have 60 hours of recess. And that's, in talking with the superintendents, they around the county, they're on top of that. I don't think, for most, because Paisley and North Lake are 4-day schools, they're already, and they don't run separate bus runs for the youngins, they're in good shape, so. Item 3, I have had some preliminary discussions with a local contractor, Sean Philibert, about our ESD roof. When I look at it, I'm not impressed. Sean look at it, he thought that it had about 3 to 5 years of life left in it. But what he said was, well, I don't think it'll start leaking until you get to 3 or 5 years out. I said, Sean, we talked about the size of the building. He got up, took a look at it, and measured some things. He thought to put a composite, an architectural shingle composite roof on it, tear the old roof off, put a new roof on, in the neighborhood of $12,000. So, just to give a heads up that, and Sarah and I are talking about this too. Of course, this will be, this won't be something that we'll probably start dealing with seriously until this summer. But certainly that's it's on the radar. I would like to not wait until we have leaks and problems inside the building before we do some things. Sean said we have about 6 areas up there where shingles have blown off, where we have some issues. So.
Is there a time guarantee on this? For
I forget if he said they were 30 or 40-year shingles. But this would be, obviously, if we get to that stage, this would be something we would put out for bid and
Because there's gonna be labor to take off old shingles, would it be maybe cost effective to put metal on?
the problem with metal, I think it would be, yes, and Sean thought it would be too, but we agree on one thing, and that is, the problem is that this building is built right out to the sidewalk. And with metal, when the snow comes off, ka-foomp, it comes off. And then you have a maintenance issue, and I think if it refreezes, you have a major safety issue. And that was one of the reasons I had Sean come down, because I said, I really want to talk to you about, the composite shingles versus metal. He tends to agree with me that if we go with the metal certainly would probably have a longer life. The metal would probably be more cost effective in the long run. Although the shingles, composite shingles now they're lasting a long time, even in this climate. Although with the wind and but yeah, the concern is with just no place for that snow to go except right on the sidewalk, which means then, boy, if you don't get right to it and then it freezes there, you've got major problems on your hands. And with the shingles, it tends to come off a lot slower. Certainly you still have drips, certainly you still have some ice and some problems, but not as bad as you would with the metal.
So has this roof already been overlaid? Is that why it must be removed?
No, there's only one, yeah, that's the other reason I had him come. Good question. It has not been overlaid. It's just that he felt that in his experience is that by starting with a clean slate and a smooth roof, the shingles are gonna last a lot longer. you have a lot less problem with shingles curling, being blown off, etc.
That's a tough one, because when the time comes to put out the bid, what are you putting out to bid? Mandatory overlay, mandatory
Yeah.
rip
So
it
that's-
all off, I mean,
Yeah.
because that's a big cost factor.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
terms of the lifespan of the product.
Yes.
Well, that'll be something we'll be looking at
Yeah.
coming in the new budget year and
Yep.
through the process to determine what the best solution is. Do we know how old this roof is now?
I think that they replaced the roof just prior to the purchase.
What is it?
I'm not
So it's
positive on that though, and that
got
was
some
back in
years.
80,
About 1920, something like that.
it was before then, it was 88 or 89.
I think they did some patchwork.
Is that what it was?
Which would
Since then.
Which would put this roof at about 25 years, which for,
Which is
for
getting-
shingles in those days,
Wow.
and this country, that's about what you get,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, we'll obviously have some conversations, probably in the summer months about what we wanna do with the roof. But I wanted to get some expert advice and information and just sort of see what our options were. We have scheduled a first aid and a CPR refresher for our employees on Tuesday, March 31st. We're hoping to have a good turnout and keep our employees up to date on that. The only big grant issue that we're dealing with right now, I'll just bring you up to date, is that we are using our chalkboard resources not only to send administrators from around the county to a lot of evaluation trainings, but we have also made the decision, the superintendents have, to bring one of the trainers that we've been working with. Her name is Marcia Moyer. She's a former HR leader in Salem Kaiser School District. Bring her to Lake County on August 31st and on October 23rd. And October 23rd would be a stellar date because the plan is, component board members, this might be a surprise to you, the plan is to try to actually have a common professional development day around the county on Friday, October 23rd. This is something that we've been kicking around. This would certainly give us, rather than having to pay for this lady to put on 2 separate presentations or possibly 3, to have her come to one location, probably be Paisley, and probably have the Lakeview teachers go up and the North Lake teachers go down. And we've been chewing this one over in admin meetings for some time now, and we will see how it goes. We think we're at the point now where the administrators are, really getting in tune with the new evaluation process, but we need to get it out to the staff as well. And we want Marcia, who's very dynamic, to be able to put on that presentation. So we think, start it off in August at in-service, and then come back and have her come back about 8 or 9 weeks later and refresh people. So we're looking forward to that. Item 6, we're starting to see a real critical problem in this county for substitute teachers. Lack of, yes. I'm surprised you haven't gotten any calls, John.
He doesn't answer the phone before.
Yeah.
First of all, there just aren't very many right now. I mean, I know North Lake is having to get subs from, is it Gilchrist? Is that what we heard? Maybe it wasn't you guys that told me that, but maybe it was Dave. Anyway, and even here in Lakeview, at times they're calling subs that live in Bly. It is getting very tough. One of the reasons is, I think the biggest reason just is we just don't have as many people here. But one of the other reasons is that the TSPC is now requiring substitute teachers to have continuing professional development units, just like practicing teachers. So, Marcia Nichols and I are gonna start putting on some professional development for teachers. substitute teachers. First of all, we're gonna really try to get the word out that when we're doing any type of professional development through the ESD, whether it's teacher mentoring, whether it's RTI, what have you, we are going to make sure we get the word out to all of the subs in the county. And then we're also looking at putting on some sessions just simply for subs. Otherwise there's gonna be no subs left. So, and then finally, the last one minor piece of good news. Summer before last, ODE put out basically a grant, $15,000 to hire grant writers for all these grants that we mentioned previous, which, summer before last, we spent a significant amount of time, not only the three of us, but Marcia Nichols and others, spent a significant amount of time writing grants. Unfortunately, under the original rules, we couldn't access the $15,000. ODE, in their infinite wisdom, said to access the $15,000, you either had to hire new personnel, i.e. a grant writer, or you had to add to somebody's FTE. You couldn't take the $15,000 and subsidize current personnel at their current workload to do these grants. Well, after much discussion with ODE, they have backed off and we were given the $15,000.
Yay.
Us, the ESD was?
We were, yes, yes,
Whoa, that's great.
yes.
Know what you guys are gonna be doing this summer?
Well, now, and that's there exactly. The same thing's gonna happen this summer. Again, it's a little bit up in the air with Mr. Kitzhaber leaving, but I don't expect a huge change. I still expect there's gonna be a lot of grant opportunities rolling out in July and August, and there will be a lot of serious grant writing going on at about that time.
Did all ESDs get this?
Yes, but initially, only the big ones got it, and they were, ODE told me, I talked to Brian Putnam a month or so ago, he said nobody in Eastern Oregon met the criteria. Western Oregon, they all hired grant writers and just paid it. But Eastern Oregon, they used existing staff and couldn't access the funds, so.
Interesting how that funding stream works.
Yeah.
And that's my report.
So speaking of funding, how about an ESD funding update?
Okay. I have some, what I think is pretty darn good news. It seems like for the last 6 months, I've just said we're spinning our wheels, nothing is going on. Well, in the last week, 2 things have happened. The OAESD yesterday unanimously approved this document that I'm handing out. And this document, as you read through it, you can see basically says that the Frontier ESDs, the 5 small ESDs, of which we are one, that our funding has been frozen at $1 million since '03. A few days ago, the subcommittee that I'm on finally agreed to support and unanimously agreed to support a $100,000 increase for those 5 ESDs. So that's us. Okay. All of the ESDs in the OAESD approved this unanimously yesterday. Yes. Which very, very important because John was privy at our phone meeting. He knows that some of the large ESDs basically had said over my dead body.
Yes, yes.
What turned this, I think, to some degree, 2 things. First off, when it was all said and done, the 3 ESDs up in northeastern Oregon, Grant, North Central, and Wallowa, all have large tax bases, which under ballot measure 5 and equalization of funding, they can't access that. And so they have these huge tax bases, and every year, everything over $1 million goes back to the state. Okay, for those 3 ESDs, their $100,000 each will come out of their tax bases, so it doesn't affect the state school support. The only 2 ESDs that will have an impact on state school support will be Lake and Harney. But since we're talking a grand total of $200,000, it's just a drop in the bucket when you're talking, the size of state school support. And so the impact on the other ESDs will be negligible, and so for that reason, it passed. The other reason I think that it passed is because a couple of ESD people pointed out to those big ESDs that this is basically a microcosm of what the ESDs deal with when we quite often are asking our larger school districts to make sacrifices for the good of the small school districts. And in this case, the large ESDs are making a very small sacrifice for the small ESDs. So,
But like elephants, they'll have a long memory.
yeah. It was approved unanimously yesterday. It's also supported by COSA and OSBA. It's going to be sponsored. It's going to be a piece of separate legislation. It'll be an actual standalone bill. It's going to be sponsored by Senator Cruz from Roseburg. It's being written as we speak. Don't know when it'll go in the hopper. Don't know when it'll be scheduled for hearing, but I've already been asked to go up and, support it. So certainly we will do that.
Yeah, let us know again so we can email our reps and
Absolutely.
support it.
I think I mentioned this to Dale earlier. I'm hoping that this means that it's truly going to get everybody's support. That behind the scenes, that there won't be some big ESDs, doing this with their legislator and saying, oh, well, we don't really want this to go through.
Well, the cost is nothing.
It's just nothing, yes,
Yeah.
it's just pennies. And so I don't foresee a problem there, but until it actually passes, we won't count that money. But certainly, and to me, it's reasonable, certainly you can argue, and by the way, the 3 ESDs who are not OAESD members are still holding very firm. They want something north of 200,000, but they have not submitted any actual legislation. And by the way, today was the cutoff for bills. Each legislator is allowed 4 exceptions to that cutoff. Senator Cruz has agreed to make this bill, our bill, one of his exceptions. I don't know what, if anything, the 3 small ESDs are going to do, but they're on their own at this point. But notice that they are benefiting from this bill should it pass. So, just a couple of things before I move on. During the discussions, and John was part of this, there was some pushback, certainly, not yesterday, but certainly at the governance council meeting earlier in the month. There was some pushback, and I want to get 2 things out to you. The large ESDs find fault with the small ESDs for having A, too much cash carryover, and B, too much flow through. I think we're okay on the cash carryover piece. Some of our brethren up in the Northeast have cash carryovers of several times ours. But even there has been some, like I say, I just want you guys to be aware of that was certainly part of some of the pushback by the large ESDs. The other thing was flow through, but I'm feeling really good that, again, we're continuing to move forward to reduce flow through with District 7. I think we're in a good pace on that. I'm pleased with that. But I just want you guys to know that those are the 2 main criticisms that you hear from the big ESDs directed at the small ESDs. They don't criticize us for other things. For example, some of our fixed costs tend to be higher because we travel more, and we have a few less personnel to cover a larger geographic. They don't find fault with a lot of those sorts of things, but they do find fault with the cash carryover and the flow through.
Is there any type of percentage of the budget they're looking at, or?
Well, I don't, that's a good question. Nobody's ever said that. It's just been a general complaint, Dale. It's not been, well, you need to keep it to 10% or, this has been a point of contention, in school districts all across Oregon.
Doesn't take
And-
much to lose $100,000.
Yeah,
Yeah, and $100,000 to us is a big chunk of the budget. Yeah.
exactly,
10%
yes.
of that million. 10% of all your gas.
And when you're paying for a person, you know, it's basically at District 7, and they've been around for a while, you know, you're talking, what, $60,000-$70,000? That's a chunk, a percentage out of $1 million.
Pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But it didn't, I'll say this, in the final vote, particularly yesterday and before, there was no pushback on any of those issues. I think once the financial picture was straightened out and the impact was made clear to those large ESDs that they're, you know, and you know, my argument too on that is, my gosh, the fact that we've been frozen for 12 years, that has meant more money for them. And so now, yeah, in order to increase our budget, it has a slight negative impact. But I can tell you, the largest ESD in the state, Northwest Regional, it'll impact their budget by $25,000 to $30,000 out of like a $66 million budget. So it's pretty minute. Questions on that? Again, it's at this point, you know, we have a sponsor, it's being written, but it's still got a long way to go. And my guess is, the way that, you know, in the last couple of legislative sessions, they've held off on the education funding until the bitter end. And so my guess is this bill will now go in with that group of education funding bills, and it'll be June before we really know for sure.
Have we asked for additional letters of support or input from the Board of Commissioners?
I'm going to, now that we have a bill, I am going to be scurrying around the county asking the commissioners, all of the component school districts, to write letters of support.
Town of
Yes.
Lakeview, City of Paisley.
Yeah, absolutely,
municipalities.
all those people to be supporting us, yes. I am waiting until it gets assigned a number so they can refer to a specific bill. But I'm hoping that by this time next week, we'll have all of that kind of good stuff, and we can, as I have traveled around the county the last few months, I have reminded everybody that I've spoken with, by the way, you'll be getting a request for a letter very soon.
It's kind of off the subject, but why is Senator Cruz out of Roseburg when it doesn't really impact any of his?
That's a good question, because he is buddy with Ozzie Rose and Jim Mabbitt.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
Hey, he's carrying it, that's good. Good. Anything else on funding update?
That's all I have. Questions?
Okay, so section 3.2, we adjusted at the beginning of the meeting to change this to an action item. And Zone 5 is the Adel Warner Valley area, geographically, that currently Vicky represents. But now, with the appointment of Mr. Hyatt, who actually lives there, a logical proposal would be to move Vicky back to an at-large position, and that we would, later on, we would make our appointment of Mr. Hyatt to Zone 5. So that would be making a change in those appointments early on. So is there any question, or does that open any questions?
It's all perfectly legal that we know of.
Yes.
Yes, we switched with
Which was,
Leslie, because
Oh,
she
that's
was, when she moved from there, I was at large, she moved from there, so that's when I switched to 5, so she could be on the board where she lived.
It's probably better,
you guys.
Yeah, I guess we did,
We did.
this probably better aligns, though,
Yeah.
representation with
Right.
what the zones
Yeah.
are, and I think that'll be easier for supporters to understand also.
And better representation for their boards there, to bring to ESD and ESD to support them more.
So I would entertain a motion to that effect. I didn't want to make a motion.
I will so move.
I will second.
Got a motion made and second to change, but to reappoint Vicki Taylor from Zone 5 to the at-large position. so we can then appoint our new representative to Zone 5. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Now, okay, I had to find my own handwriting. So, a little bit later in information discussion items, we'll deal with the swearing in as well. We won't let you sit and stew a little bit, Jim, so you still have a chance to run.
It's blocking me, blocking me.
Okay, budget resolutions. We have 2 budget resolutions before us tonight. And I presume Sarah would like to explain what these mean in the terms that your able-bodied board members understand,
You betcha.
and Dale too.
Okay, so the first resolution is mainly for 2 purposes. One is we increased the FTE of our special ed teacher from 0.6 FTE to 1.0 FTE. So this will create room in those expenditure lines for those payroll costs. And also there was higher than expected cost for the 0.5 tech assistant that we pay for District 7, and so this resolution also increases that line item to create room for those expenses. Those expenses are covered by 3 areas. One is additional OMAP dollars we've already received. This resolution allocates revenue we already received. It's not anticipated, we already have it. And then the other area is the $15,000 revenue that Bob referred to for the grant writing thing. We're going to use that to cover some of these extra expenses. And then the third area is redistributing other line items that at this point in the year it's anticipated they won't be spent out. So we have to spend this money because it's 90%, part of our 90% side of things. And so we're putting it from unexpended balances into these expenses that we know we will have.
Are you talking about the 15,000 from ODE?
That was the second, yeah.
But I thought we weren't going to count on that. I mean, Bob just said we're not counting on it, so it made it sound like we weren't gonna spend it or delegate it. But we have in this, or this is what it would be
I didn't-
used for.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that, no.
And that might not be your exact verbiage, but
Right.
I took that, we
Yeah,
won't expect it till we get
Yeah,
it.
we're,
So, okay, but we have funds in here even if we
yeah,
don't.
I think, these adjustments that Sarah's referring to, we knew these were coming. As I say, the first
Right.
one, the increase in the FTE for the special ed teacher, again, that's something that will have to be worked out when we do the apportionment with the districts at the end of the year
Right.
to see where we are with District
Right,
7.
I understood that. I just wanted clarity because she said the grant,
Yeah.
15,000 you just got, and we don't know if we're gonna get it till we get it,
We
but we
actually
have
have it.
funds somewhere,
We
that's
have-
what I'm clarifying.
Yeah, we have the
Okay.
15,000 already. I think maybe what we aren't quite counting on yet is the $100,000 increase in funding for next year.
Okay,
I
that,
think maybe
We're not
that's
counting
what.
on that.
okay, that's
But-
where, okay, clarity, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So that's the first resolution. The second resolution is all happy news. We're receiving more teacher mentoring grant than what was originally budgeted. We have more participants in that program. And the grant was originally, we received $5,000 per participant. So, and then of course there are expenses associated with having more participants. So this, the first part of the resolution, the top paragraph there, it receives more revenue and it expends that revenue for the teacher mentor program. The second part is our print shop has had a huge increase in demand with various curriculum that District 7 is, they're photocopying instead of buying textbooks, is that right, Bob?
Yep,
Yeah.
they have, they're about midway through a mathematics adoption. They adopted Saxon, but along came the Common Core and Smarter Balance. Saxon wasn't gonna cut it in terms of getting kids ready. They adopted a curriculum called Engage New York. They've done a lot of work with it. Actually, through the sustainability grant, we're helping pay for a couple of math coaches in that district to get the teachers going. Anyway, as a result, there's a lot of photocopying,
Yeah.
and, because they don't use textbooks.
And I'm not sure if everybody read it, but in the description of this resolution, it mentions that our print shop has already received the total amount budgeted with 5 months left in the year. So, but again, there's a lot of paper and other supplies that have to be purchased with that.
So in accordance with budget law, if your revenue or your expenditures change by more than a certain percentage of your
10%.
adopted budget, you have to do a budget resolution to account for it and keep your audit clean.
Actually, the 10% rule that's why we have to have the budget hearing.
The hearing,
It's for the print shop stuff, yeah.
gotcha,
Mhm.
gotcha. So are there any questions on either of these two resolutions? Would you prefer that we handle them separately or together?
I think it's listed again down below in the action items. Either way, you have to close the hearing.
Okay,
When you do it, you can do them both at the same time.
okay. Okay. June meeting date change. Huh.
Yes, can't let a year go by without Bob wanting you to change a meeting date. I'm hoping, I've got a trip planned back to Washington DC to see one of my kids. I'm hoping that we can bump the June meeting up to June 17th.
I won't know till tomorrow, but I think I'm here that we have a thing in Portland in June at Directors all across the state, and I think it's the week of the 10th, but I think we could still have a quorum if one of us are gone.
I'm pretty
Otherwise,
sure
I
my
won't have
week,
a
the
problem.
Bermudas is not that week.
Isn't that hurricane season?
Yeah, that'd be about when I would go. So, I guess we'll take that under advisement and maybe lock in next
Is
month.
this also the meeting where we appoint
No,
our legal
that's July.
counsel?
that's the 1st of July.
Okay.
First meeting of the new fiscal year. Okay, so now we have our addition to the agenda, section 3.5, swearing in of our newly appointed board member. And we want to get him in front of the camera to raise his right hand, so it's memorialized appropriately. Because we do have it here, the swearing in. So, got it. If you could raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Jim Hyatt,
I, Jim Hyatt,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of Oregon
and the Constitution of the State of Oregon
and the laws thereof,
and the laws thereof,
and will faithfully and honorably demean myself
faithfully and honorably demean myself
in the office of
in the office of
Director, Lake County ESD Zone 5,
Director of Lake County ESD Zone 5,
to which I have been elected
to which I have been elected
to the best of my ability, so help me God.
to the best of my ability, so help me God.
And with that, you're locked in, baby.
The town council's looking at changing their wording in that, because when they were swearing in new people, they said it's old regulations, so they're looking at redoing theirs.
Yeah, that demean.
Because that
thing.
demean thing,
Yeah,
yeah.
I actually looked it up.
Yeah.
I think it means humble.
Yeah,
That's-
yeah, it
Yeah.
is, but it was now, because words have different meanings over generations now, people take it as.
And we want to be more politically
So it was
correct and
brought up
feel
at town council a couple of months ago that they were.
Okay, so I opened budget hearing at the beginning of the meeting, and are there any members of the public present who have any questions about or insight regarding the budget hearing? With that being said, I will close the budget hearing at 7:48. And with this, we'll now retire to executive session under ORS 192.660, section 2, subsection I, to review and evaluate the performance of the chief executive officer of public officer.
That's what she did last time, she brought me cookies.
I kept
to
calling
remind
him
me.
every day, cause we had to sign up the same day. You need, I don't have $10, I can find you $10.
We'll find
Filling
it.
this
Yeah.
out, I said, we'll find $10, I'll even give you cookies, cookies will work.
You haven't
Wait,
signed
so-
up yet?
No,
Yeah.
well, we just got them, yeah.
Again, I got
But-
it again. All right, we'll come back into regular session at 8:16. After being in executive session where no decisions were made. We have action items, section 5.1, approval of budget resolutions 1415-02 and 1415-03.
We'll make that motion.
I will second.
Motion made and second, any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. We have in our packet, which I just managed to put in the wrong spot here. We have a blue sheet here, update on, this is, again, the licensed personnel. We're looking, Bob, do you want to give us a brief summary of what this is and these individuals regarding the certified offers of employment?
Yeah, actually, starting on the pink page, you'll see that the proposal for action tonight is to move Ellen Jacobs to second-year probationary status, move Megan Hennigan to third-year probationary status. Two of our staff members, Jana Greenshield and Jada Morse, would be moving from probationary to contract status, 2-year contract status, and then the renewal of our existing people already on contract status, Mike Benson, Kathy Leibold, Marcia Nichols, and Renee Price. There are, I can tell you guys, I just have a wonderful licensed staff here. They care about kids, they're motivated, they work together as a team. There's certainly no major issues. In fact, I would have to think pretty hard to mention any minor issues. Ellen's the new one to the team this year, but of course she was a contract employee at North Lake prior to this year. But we added her to the staff this year. That's been a good move for us. And if you have any questions, I'm very pleased. They do a great job.
So do you have, your recommendation is that we adopt
5.2.
resolution 5.2.
Yes.
Make that motion?
I'll second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Boy, Jim was just, he was on the draw there. Approval of superintendent contract in light of performance evaluation being satisfactory plus.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Made and second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That's for a 1-year contract effective July 1, 2015 for Superintendent Nash. Section 5.4, approved zone reappointments, we've done earlier in the agenda. And then our last item would be approval of the June meeting change. Do we want to approve that tonight, or do we want to just confirm, or do we believe we've got enough of a quorum here we can approve that change for June?
I'll make a motion to approve the change in the June meeting dates.
Second.
Motion made and second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, motion carried. That being said, our next regular board meeting, Wednesday, March 18th, here. The last thing I like to ask everybody, is there anything for the good of the order? Anything anybody we need to know about or be looking at?
Get your $10 together and fill out your application.
With
That would be for the good of the order.
meeting closed at 8:20.